Well, now that we've learned about environment variables and all the things that we can do with those, I kept talking about how later on I'll talk about how we can actually use those and make them persistent, right? And that's what we're going to talk about in this section. So one of the problems with these variables is that they do not apply outside of the session in which you declare them or modify them. So there has to be a way to export those to other sessions. And the export command is one way to do that. If you use the export command, it'll allow that command, or I'm sorry, that variable to be available in other sessions for that shell. So for example, if you launch the bash shell, you create a variable, and then you launch another bash shell within that shell, right? So maybe you use the su command, or maybe you just launched a different shell, or put something in the background and move to a different shell. It won't be available. So you can use the export command to make it available to other sessions. The other way we can make those variables, so export is somewhat useful, but what's even more useful is using scripts to do that. So there are scripts that are really part of the standard installation for most Linux distributions. So it's an executable program that's written using an interpreted language. We talk about interpreted languages. We talked about that already in this course. But basically, Bash has its own language, and we can use those to write scripts that can apply these types of changes to our environment every time we connect or log in. So basically, if you place the script in etc bash rc or etc profile, those will be executed, those scripts, whenever someone logs in, anyone logs in. So bash rc is when somebody logs into the terminal, and profile is regardless of how someone's using the shell. This could be other programs that are not somebody actually logged into the system. It could be a program or application or process that's running in the background, for example. And they have to have context as well, just like someone who's logged into the system. So we would edit those files. Users, if you go into your home directory, you'll see a bash rc and a bash profile, and that's where you can edit. So for example, you'll see aliases, you'll see environment variables in there, and you can edit those, and you can create new ones. You can create new aliases, put them in there, and it'll change it so that they take effect every time you log in or connect to your system. The other is etc profile, which I talked about just briefly before. There are some environment variables here that can apply to all programs, whether it's a program that's running in the background or somebody who's logged into shell from the front end, just like we're used to doing. And then etc bash rc is used on the for any user that logs in. It'll execute those. So basically, these are all locations that scripts can be executed when somebody connects to the system. So when you log in, first, what you find in etc bash rc and profile are executed, scripts that you find in there, and then the ones that are in your home directory will be executed. So you could have ones that are global under etc that apply to all users, and you can further refine what happens when you log in. So if you like a different command prompt, for example, you can edit ps1 in your bash rc. You may not see an existing one in there, and that's okay because it got set by the startup script that's running in etc. So it just gives you some control over your environment. So let's take a look at these startup scripts. First, I had mentioned that in your home directory, you'll have a bash rc and a bash profile. So we can take a look at those. Now remember, you can use the tilde for your home directory. And actually, let's take a quick step back. If you just run the ls command, you're not going to see those two files. You have to add the -a for all, and it'll show you hidden files. So now we can see the bash rc and the bash profile, and then bash logout, which runs when you log out, right? If you want something to be unwound every time you log off. So if we take a look at bash rc, oh, I think I spelled bash wrong. It's not bach, it's bash. So you can see here, this is where it goes out and finds the etc bash rc first, right? So it checks to see if etc bash rc is there. If it is, it'll run whatever's in there, and then it will continue and do some additional things, right? So we could edit that file. So for example, if I use vi and I edit .bash rc, and the color scheme is kind of hard to read here, so I'm going to change the color scheme to something a little bit easier to see. So if I scroll down, I can add my own lines. So I meant to do new line, but that's okay. So maybe I want to do an alias for ls equals there we go. So I'll add that alias. So now I'll have when I run ls, it'll be ls-al, color equals auto, right? And then what else might I do? Maybe I'll create an environment variable. So I'll say name equals Brian Green. And I'll actually create another alias. I'll call it me. And me is just going to say echo, oops, I meant to use the single quote, echo name. That's it, right? So I've added some stuff to my file. So now if I exit, then I'm going to go ahead and log back in. So I'm going to SSH back to my server. It should have executed those. So if I echo name, you can see it's set. If I just type the me command, it gives me my name, right? So you can see it ran that startup script. If you recall, there are, oh, let's try the ls command, right? That worked because now it's going to give us that style listing. So we have the bash rc, we have bash profile, bash logout, and then if we look under etc, well, let's do this. We'll do dot star, right? That'll show us just the hidden files, right? Oops. I guess we can't do that, so we just have to show everything. All right. So if I scroll up here, and by the way, it's another way to do this, but we're looking for bash rc. There it is. And then we should also see profile. Starts with a P. And there it is. So we can edit profile. We could edit bash rc in here. And again, if we want something to apply to all of our users, we'll use the etc version of that file. And if we just want to do it for our own account, we'll use bash rc or profile that's inside our own account.